Thanks for joining.
The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes, and suddenly everything seems darker, less lively, and you lose your motivation to get out of bed.
If you struggle with depression, you're not alone. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, and no matter the time of year, it may affect your behavioral or physical ability to live a happy life.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, we understand what you're going through, and we're here to help. Our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round. We work every day to eliminate stigma, combat mental illness and substance use disorders, and advance mental wellness.
If you or someone you love needs help, you are not alone. Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
You held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you...
Bipartisan vote. The House passed the bill to suspend the nation's debt limit through January 2025.
Tonight, we all made history because this is the biggest cut and savings this Congress has ever voted for.
The bill, which was the result of a deal between the White House and House Republicans, also caps some federal spending.
It was a rigged election, and it's a shame that we had to go through it. It's very bad for our country.
We got about 12 sound bites in there. But I just want to quickly mention, as we introduce the program, that it's intriguing how Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans are asserting that this was the biggest, reduction in spending in the history of the universe as a result of what they did in this debt ceiling crisis. When the reality is that 1.5 trillion that they claim that they have reduced spending by only comes to 150 billion per year. It's only guaranteed to occur over the next 2 years. And there are so many things that are drivers of expenses that are going to incur that the net $150 billion is not going to be the number that you will see over the course of the next 2 years. But that's why we're here. Welcome and good morning. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're also here with our in-studio audience of one, Norm MacArthur. How you doing, Norm?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Hare. How you doing, sir?
Norm met me on the way in. He was outside. You know, he was welcoming the commencement people. So we got different parts of the college are having their commencement secretaries or observances going on or celebrations going on.
That's what y'all was doing.
Right.
You was trying to blame it on me.
No question. I was trying to figure out a route to connect you to, you being responsible for this thing, but I had to go ahead and just tell the truth. I couldn't come up with a funny way to do it. And so, and that, of course, is Willie H., who is our citizen of the 21st century, who actually understands how to do these programs. Through him, we're able to get this program live streamed so that you all have access to it through a lot of different medium. And so the big news that we should be looking at is that the debt ceiling bill has finally passed the House of Representatives, or the House of the Senate. This is critically important because if this had not been done by Monday, there were going to be Treasury bills that were going to mature, and people who had bought those Treasury bills were going to ask for their principal back, and they weren't going to be able to get it. You all remember what happened with these banks, right? We had 3 banks that have failed in the last 3 months, and what happened? The banks had sold so much of their money off to creditors as loans that when citizens came and asked for some of their money back, the banks didn't have enough actual liquid cash to pay the citizens. It wasn't they didn't have the assets. They had the assets, but they couldn't convert the assets into liquid money that they could then give to the citizens who were asking for their money back. So that creates a run on the bank, and that causes a panic at that bank. And that's why those banks were scrambling to try to get people to loan them money so that they could pay their creditors or their depositors. And because that just didn't work out very well, those banks actually were forced to close. So that same situation is facing the U.S. government. If the U.S. government is financing itself by selling Treasury notes, those Treasury notes don't go on forever. So it's a 1-year Treasury note, or it's a 5-year Treasury note, or it's a 10 or a 20-year Treasury note. When those Treasury notes mature, the person who bought that note gets to get their they've been getting interest, for whatever the term was of the Treasury note, but now they get their entire principal back. But if you don't have the money to give them the principal back because you've already sold that money to somebody else, that's going to create a problem, right? Somebody's going to have their mouth poked out. If you go to your bank and your account says there's $10,000 in your account, so you go to get $1,000, and the bank teller tells you, I appreciate, you want that $1,000, and your account says you have enough money to cover it, but we can't give you the money. And you say, why can't you give me the money? Wow. Well, we as a bank make our money by selling your money to other people.
Right.
Well, we sold so much of your money to other people, we didn't anticipate that Joe Biden was going to, in order to deal with the inflation stuff, that they were going to increase interest rates so that the 2% interest rate that you got on the Treasury note that you had bought, now you can't sell that Treasury note to anybody else because the Treasury notes are paying 4% or they're paying 5%. So if you got a Treasury note that pays 2% or 3%, nobody's going to buy that note from you. So you can't turn your bank can't turn that Treasury note into money. They have to wait until that Treasury note matures, right, and then they could turn it into lump sum money that goes back to whoever bought that Treasury note. Now that sounds a little bit complicated, but it's not that complicated. And if you just see the logic in that's what's happening or would be happening. In fact, it has been happening to the American government right now. The American government's been very tricky in finding ways to manipulate various accounts that they can turn into the assets into cash and use that to pay bills, where principal is due. They've been able to do that, but there's only so far you can go without enough money to be able to get that done. That's what the borrowing ceiling was all about. The debt ceiling was all about. So as a consequence of this negotiation, between the president and Kevin McCarthy, and it went to Kevin McCarthy because all funding, all movement of money in this country has to begin in the House of Representatives. No matter what you say or how you feel about it, the structure of the Constitution says that that bill has to start in the House of Representatives. Even if the president comes up with the bill or the Senate comes up with the bill, they still have to take it back to the House of Representatives, and it has to start there officially, and then get voted on, and then come back to the Senate, and then come from the Senate to the president. So that's the process that we've been in. It seems to me to be typical that when there's close votes on the table, this is Norm's cousin. Norm doesn't take responsibility for him very often, but I'm gonna blame this on Norm today. Senator Joe Manchin.
Hey,
we talked about
very
this.
Distant cousins.
Yeah, way distant, right? In fact, you can't even send a bullet as far away as distant as that is, right? And we talked about this on Wednesday, that as they got down to the final elements of what was going to get pushed through the House of Representatives as the final form of this debt ceiling bill, as we were getting to that point, something came up that we talked about on Wednesday, that they had something called the Mountain Valley pipeline was stuck into the bill. And of course, Norm being a logical person, right? Norm was saying, wait, I thought we were talking about the debt ceiling. I said, yeah. Didn't you hear Willie? We were talking about the debt ceiling, right? So Norm says, well, how does the mountain pipeline, how does that help us close the gap on the debt ceiling? What is the relationship between the Mountain Valley pipeline and the debt ceiling? And of course, Willie, being a smart aleck, said there's no relationship. There's no relationship at all. So, well, then how'd this get into the bill? Because way back last year, I'm just sharing this with you so you understand the context of how these things come about. Last year, when they were Biden was trying to get the Inflation Reduction Act passed, that $1.7 trillion omnibus budget bill passed, that actually got passed in December. In order to get that bill into a form where it could get passed, he had to negotiate pieces with different senators and congresspeople. In other words, they had to get something in order to give their vote. Joe Manchin said, I need the Mountain Valley pipeline. Now, everybody who doesn't live in West Virginia is probably wondering, what in the world is a Mountain Valley pipeline, and what does that have to do with the price of eggs? It has nothing to do with the price of eggs. It's Joe Manchin makes his money on fossil fuels, mainly coal. And he's also got his company positioned to mine natural gas. And so the Mountain Valley pipeline was going to enable a quicker transport of natural gas from West Virginia to Virginia to then go to wherever they go to refine natural gas and turn it into whatever product it's going to get turned into in Virginia. That's what this was really all about. Joe Manchin made it a part of the negotiation to get the $1.7 trillion Inflation Reduction Act passed. He had to promise that the very first opportunity that he could, he had to put this Mountain Valley pipeline into the deal. So this debt ceiling issue came up, and, Joe Manchin called in his chits, I need to see the Mountain Valley pipeline. So if you're curious about how the Mountain Valley pipeline got into the deal, that's how it got into the deal. And what was, just one more thing, what was interesting on that is that was not an amendment to the debt ceiling bill that was passed on Wednesday in the House of Representatives. That was already in the bill that was put before the House of Representatives on Wednesday. So there was no amendment that needed to be put on it because it was a part of the original legislation. Go ahead, Nora.
Mr. Hare, I was just gonna say maybe my cousin will send me a little change or something.
I don't know why your cousin's been so hard on you, man. You know, he should have brought a Brinks truck or something over here. So in this case, Joe Manchin got what he wanted. Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine for Virginia, who was a candidate to be vice president, as you all recall, a bit back, with Mrs. Clinton. And Tim Kaine was upset. He's a senator from Virginia. He said, how in the world did the Mountain Valley Pipeline get put into Virginia and nobody spoke to me, and I'm the senator from Virginia? And Joe Manchin said, because I snuck it behind your back while you weren't looking. And next time, look harder. Well, he may not have said that out loud, but that's what he said in his heart. And so Tim Kaine said, well, I don't like that. That's not right. That should have come. Now, what was interesting with Tim Kaine's argument, he didn't argue whether it was good or bad to have the pipeline. He argued that it was bad for the pipeline to have been put into the bill and that it would affect Virginia, and he being the senator from Virginia, not knowing about it until after the fact. It was, oops. I don't know how to use these phones. Oh, there we go. Tim Kaine was upset with the process, not necessarily upset with whether or not it was a good or a bad thing to have the pipeline. But he insisted on putting an amendment into the bill that was going to be submitted or voted on by the Senate, to put an amendment to that bill that would take out the pipeline. Here's the problem. In the structure of how government is set up in the United States, a bill that moves money has to begin in the House of Representatives.
Okay.
When that bill is approved by the House of Representatives, it sends that exact bill to the Senate. If the Senate modifies the bill, puts amendments on the bill to change the bill, so it's no longer the identical bill, it can't vote on that bill. It has to send that bill back to the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives has to vote on the bill all over again. They have to send a bill to the Senate that's going to be identical to what the Senate is going to vote on. Verbatim, every comma, where the stamps go, everything has to be identical.
Okay.
Well, if you know that the Republicans were doing everything in their power to obstruct getting this debt ceiling stuff passed in the first place, if you send the bill back to the House of Representatives, they're going to do the same thing then that they had been doing before. They would find ways to obstruct, create more amendments, create more delays, and provoke a default in this country, and then blame the default on the Democrats.
Right.
They would blame it on people like Joe Manchin and Tim Kaine. They say it was your fault. We voted on a debt ceiling, for you guys. You're the ones who messed it up, and so on, right? So this is the games. We know they refer to something as brinksmanship. This is what they mean by brinksmanship. People using choke points to manipulate the process. So even if you don't have a disagreement with the substance of something, you can always disagree with the process of something. And if nothing less, you can slow things down. And slowing things down can make things fatal. In other words, you could do things so slowly that the thing you were trying to avoid ends up occurring regardless.
So, Mr. Hare, if the wording is changed in any way, that will affect the whole process just due to the wording?
If you changed one word, the word "and," if you take the word "and" and make it say "also," you have to send the entire bill back to the House of Representatives. They have to vote on the new version of the bill and send that back to the Senate.
Wow.
That's the way the process works.
Okay.
But you can see that really is the way it has to work. Otherwise, you would have a situation where the House would pass a bill, then the Senate would pass a different bill, And then who would decide which version of the bill is the real law, right? It has to be that both houses agree on the exact same thing. Every single word has to be done that way. So pushing the amendment to the bill just risks Republican extremists or Democratic extremists using the opportunity to delay the passage of the bill to add further amendments and possibly even force a default, if that's what the goal was, of the people that are doing the amendments, pushing these amendments. You would think that Senator Tim Kaine would know better. I mean, he's a leading Democrat. You would think this would be something that he would be conscious of, but he appeared to be extremely upset with Senator Joe Manchin. That he felt like Joe Manchin snuck him. Yeah. Sometimes you get beat. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes people make moves on you and you didn't see the move until too late and they were able to take advantage of you. Well, you could walk around with your mouth poked out, or you could suck it up and say, okay, I see you made that move on me. That's not going to happen again. And I'm going to find another way to extract the price from you, in the future. That's the way the business has to go. I know it sounds cynical, but that's the way the business has to go. Representative Pramila Jayapal, who is the chair of the 101-member Progressive Caucus, she was forced to accept some limits on the omnibus $1.7 trillion Inflation Reduction Act in order to get that budget bill passed through the Senate or through the House of Representatives. She was forced, or she accepted the premise that you cannot let the good be the enemy of the perfect. In other words, she wanted to see a much more expansive child care support program, expanded child care tax credits, expanded climate control, and so on, when Biden was pushing that bill that got passed in December. But Biden didn't think he could get the bill passed in the first place if he put all of that stuff in there. So he tried to negotiate as much as he could. When he got to the limit of what he thought he could get done, that's what he put into the final bill. Jayapal could have done what the Republicans do. No, I don't like it. It's my way or the highway. She could have done that, and there would never have been an inflation reduction bill. And so all that money that you see now, $350 billion going for road repair, you all know we talk about road repair all the time, in this program.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Bridge repair, and that sort of stuff. That money would not exist if Biden hadn't gotten that bill passed. Jayapal had to accept that the good cannot be made the enemy of the perfect. So I get a lot of good done in this $1.7 trillion bill. Let me go with that, and I'll try to get more, in another year. But let's get this done right now. Go ahead.
Mr. Hare, my brother listens to the show, and he doesn't call in, but he just posed a question.
What's that?
Told me to ask you, how come how come President Biden didn't just evoke the 14th Amendment?
See, I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay, this is my big brother.
Right, your big brother, because he's focusing on something that's really important. The media keeps throwing stuff at us, making us think that it's something that you could snap your fingers and it will occur. Mm-hmm. As soon as you start down the road of saying that the 14th Amendment does say that the faith, or whatever it is, the obligations of the federal government cannot be denied, cannot be unsatisfied, that the federal government has to pay its bills not by law, by Constitution. It is the Constitution of the United States that requires, the 14th Amendment that requires that the federal government pay all of its bills on time, period. There can't be any distinction on that. The problem is that the mechanisms within the Constitution to get that done are not that specific. It doesn't say that the people who would do that would be the Treasury, or the people that would do that would be the Department of Justice, or it would be the Senate, or it would be the House of Representatives. And so it doesn't specify it that way. So Biden would have to do it as an executive order, and then the Republicans would challenge it. They'd go to court. And immediately, Donald Trump and his crew got all kind of judges, sprinkled through the federal court system. The likelihood is you're going to bump into a judge who's going to be in line with the Republicans, who will make a political decision, not a constitutional decision, and would slow the process down. If you slow the process down, you're going to get way past June 5th, to get a resolution.
Okay.
If you get past June 5th, you're in default.
Yeah.
So the issue that was facing the Democrats was the timeline to avoid default. So this is going to, knowing how these things take place. Look at how long it takes to fight over somebody not willing to respond to a subpoena. They say in January, I'm not going to respond to the subpoena that you gave me, and you don't get a ruling from the court until September. Well, just think if that had happened with this 14th Amendment issue, and you had the resolution of the obligations that are owed by the federal government, if you have that stuff set in suspension, from now until September, what happens to all of those creditors that are owed their money? So this is the position that the president was in. It's not that he didn't feel that the 14th Amendment was correct in terms of its authority over this issue. It's that the process to have that threat or to have that authority certified by the courts was going to take so long, the country would wind up being well into default, before that occurred. And he couldn't risk the country going into default.
All right. I hope that answers your question, big bro.
All right. So much of the reaction among legislators to the negotiated bill was based on the small circle of negotiators that were pulled together by McCarthy and President Biden to negotiate the bill. I need for us to understand this too, because some things sound good but aren't good. So the sound good is all these Democrats and Republicans saying, well, we weren't a part of the discussion. We didn't get a chance to get all of our input into the deliberations and whatnot. And this was just, a backroom smoke, what do you call it? Smoking in the back room, type of a backroom deal. Well, it was a smokestack back in the back room kind of deal. That is true. That's what occurred. But if it had not been done that way, there would not have been a deal at all. Have you ever been in a negotiation or in a discussion in your own family where, I don't know if you have a large family, but if you have a large family and there's like 30 or 40 people that are affected by something and you have a family meeting, if all 30 or 40 people come to the family meeting, how much do you think is actually going to get done?
Not much.
Not much at all. You'd be lucky if you can get the potato chips eaten.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because too many voices means no voices. Nobody's voice gets heard. So you have to bring this down to a smaller set of people. So there's just 3 or 4 people talking. They can come to some conclusion. Now, what actually occurs is the 2 people from the Democratic side and the 2 people from the Republican side became the filters. So if you were a Democratic senator or you're a Democratic congressperson, you would go to those negotiators and say, well, I hear you guys are talking about blah, blah, blah. What about this? What about that? And you would, they have staff. So they would take it to their staffs. There may be 30, 40 staff for each one of those negotiators, and they would work these things out and get back to you. That way you can actually get responsiveness. You can get stuff done. If you didn't do it this way, you just have all of these, there's 435 between the Senate and the House of Representatives, 435 of these people. Or is it the other way? No, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. There's 535 of these people. There's 100 senators and there's 435 Congress people. If you have all of those voices all talking at the same time, you might as well not have anybody talking because you're just not going to be able to get anything through that process. So that's why it had to be done that way. Again, that's a pragmatic way of looking at it, but that's the way you have to look at some things, right?
Yeah.
And so as the deal went down on Wednesday, 314 of the 435 Congress people voted for the bill. 117 voted against it in the House of Representatives. When it went to the Senate, this was last night, I got to give Chuck Schumer, some credit. Chuck Schumer said that when the bill got to the Senate, we're not going to be here long. What do you mean we're not going to be here long? He said, listen, this thing's got to be gone by Friday.
Right.
Not on its way. It's got to be gone by Friday because we are not going to miss the debt ceiling date because you all are standing on ceremony. That's just not going to happen. Right. He had this thing voted on last night.
Yeah.
And it went 63 to 37. That means it had 3 votes more than you needed to beat a filibuster. That's a good deal, right? Now, you may not like all of the elements in the deal, but you have to ask yourself, as I said before, which is the worst thing? You having the age at which somebody has to prove that they have that they're working or they're going to school or something from age 50 to age 54. Is that the worst deal, or is it defaulting on $5 trillion in federal debt? Excuse me, $31.4 trillion in federal debt, which is the worst thing, to occur. If you agree with me that defaulting on $31.4 trillion worth of debt and having all that debt come due at one time in the same 4 or 5 month period, that can't make sense.
Not at all.
That just can't make sense. Go ahead.
Just wondering, and I'm kind of thinking about Chuck Schumer. Is he very respected in the Senate?
Oh yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, he has as much respect in the Senate as Nancy Pelosi had in the House of Representatives.
Okay, this is what I'm. So that, in a way, when you look at sometimes the I would say the respect issue of the top person, that can kind of make a vote go well, make a vote go quicker than it may have been if he wasn't.
If you have the respect of that
McCarthy.
leader, right?
Yeah.
Then that person can cobble people together and use their goodwill, their relationships to get people to accept things they might otherwise not have accepted.
I don't think McCarthy's very much respected. You know what I mean, in the House.
Well, he's not, but I don't really know how. To me, McCarthy is a very cunning and venal kind of a person that does what he needs to do in order for him to maintain power, but doesn't do things based on some particular moral conviction. There's something insidious about a person who has no actual, moral fiber or integrity that drives them.
Kind of a yes man, leans the way the wind blows.
Well, not necessarily a yes man, but definitely a man who does everything based on a political calculus.
Yeah.
Not based on a right and wrong calculus.
I got you.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And now another piece of this story is Hakeem Jeffries. Now, as you all know, Hakeem Jeffries is now the minority leader in the House of Representatives, right? He got that spot after Nancy Pelosi stepped down she was Speaker of the House when the Democrats were in the majority. Now the Democrats are in the minority. You have the minority leader of the House, and that's Hakeem Jeffries. What I find interesting is when other people were the speakers of the House and we were going through these various negotiations on bills, you always heard about what the Speaker of the House or the minority leader of the House, what their thoughts were, who was positioning people to do X, Y, and Z, and so on. That was the way that tended to go. But have you heard Hakeem Jeffries' name at all during the course of these debt ceiling negotiations?
No.
Not at all. Now, why would that be when you can't get you couldn't have gotten the debt ceiling bill out of the House of Representatives if you did not get a vast majority of the Democrats in the House to vote for it. So the Democrats didn't want to vote for it because they said this is the Republicans' bill. They put all of this stuff, in the bill. They created this crisis in the first place. Let them pass the bill. They got 218 votes. They don't need any of our votes. Let them pass the bill on their own. Well, McCarthy knew he couldn't get 218 votes to pass the bill. He'd be lucky if he could get 150 votes.
Right.
Hakeem Jeffries said, I'm willing to help you get Democratic votes to pass the bill. However, I don't want this to be a Democratic bill. It's your bill. You wrote the bill. You're the ones who caused this crisis in the first place. So you have to give us at least 150 of your votes from your members, which represent about 2/3 of the Republicans in the House of Representatives.
Okay.
You need to give us at least 150 of your votes. Well, they never got 150 of their votes. The way the vote actually went, I think it was 165, 166 of the votes were from the Democrats, and only 149 of the votes were from the Republicans, and the others were from some independents and so on. And so I found it intriguing that Hakeem Jeffries, he had the Democrats hold their votes. I don't know if you all watch this stuff on
I didn't see it.
If you watch it on C-SPAN or on MSNBC, they had like a ticker, showing you, here's how many Republicans voted for it, here's how many for the Democrats as the votes were being cast. And there was one point where there was like only 80 votes cast by the Democrats at all. The rest of the votes were still sitting in the non-vote, column. So why are they taking so long to vote? You only got they had a certain amount of time, to vote, like 15 minutes or something like that to vote. The Democrats were just sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what the Republicans were going to do, and the Republicans were sitting on the sidelines. I don't know what they were waiting on. They could have been waiting on the Democrats, and Democrats already told you what they were going to do. And so eventually, the Republicans started to pile in and put their votes. And when they saw that the Republicans had put enough votes on the table that the Democrats could get this thing passed with a minority of the Democrats voting for it, that's when the Democrats started to cast their votes. Ultimately, the Democrats cast many more votes for the bill than the Republicans did for the bill, even though it was a Republican bill. I found it that interesting, but I found more interesting was the fact that Hakeem Jeffries was not featured very much until that last day on Wednesday, this past Wednesday. Then you saw, a number of interviews with Hakeem Jeffries and, some discussions with him about him leading his caucus. But why wasn't that conversation going on with him in the weeks and months prior to this past Wednesday? Something curious to me about that. And maybe it's because he just comes from the wrong camp of people. Maybe he needed to be from a different camp of people in order for him to get the same kind of publicity and respect and acknowledgement for his role that Nancy Pelosi got, or Denny Hastert got, or other people that had, John Boehner got, people that had been minority leaders or Speaker of the House. I just found that intriguing. Go ahead.
All right. Wondering if this vote on the debt ceiling being ratified, does it bode more for the Republicans or for the Democrats? Who does it serve the most, and why?
I think that this serves the Democrats better than the Republicans on the basis that the expenditures that have been created already before December of 2022, then with the expenditures that were created in the Inflation Reduction Act, 1.7 trillion in December of 2022, all those things that were the structure of the expenditures of government are all in place. So even though they put a cap on those expenditures, the cap was on the expenditures that had already been raised. Remember we talked before in 2019, the discretionary, non-defense discretionary part of the budget was $1.7 trillion.
Yes, sir.
But after that bill was passed in December, the discretionary part of government went to $2.7 trillion. Well, that's the expenditure level for the non-discretionary part of the government that is in place right now, right? So the Democrats ended up keeping all of the gains that they had made in terms of services and scale of services to the public. But I think we have a caller hanging on. Let me grab that caller real quick. Hi, caller, are you there? Yep. Hello, caller, are you there? Willie, did you lose our caller?
I don't know. No, I shouldn't have lost him. I guess we did. Call back, caller. Call back.
All right, give us a call back. We're going to take a quick break because Willie was supposed to take care of our sponsors, but he let me
forgot.
He let me just talk right on through.
Yep, totally forgot.
Yeah.
Right about
so let me give us that break, and caller, please call back. We'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is often laced into illicit drugs and used to make fake versions of prescription pills. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. Suppliers mix fentanyl into their products because it's potent and cheap, and the dealer might not even know. Keep yourself and others safe by knowing the real deal on fentanyl. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. Welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norma Carter, who's our in-studio audience of one. And we're here with Willie H., who is our citizen of the 21st century. Welcome back, guys, for the program.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. Make sure you call in 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. And call back. I don't know why we lost you, but call back.
All right, because we don't worry about, is Norma or Willie going to embarrass you? We don't do that. We don't hang up on people. We don't get mad because you talk loud or whatever it is that you do. We just want to hear your thoughts and let the public hear your thoughts. And that's really what's most important, is that all of us understand what each of us, our perspectives are.
Whoever that was, he was excited. He thought I was Nathan Hare. He was excited to hear you. So I don't know. Maybe he got excited and hung about it.
Uh-oh. So my voice is too calm. You wanted your rabid voice. Okay. So one of the things that also is important for us to understand that I think comes out of our examination of what happened this week in these votes, the media gives you the impression, I don't know what the best way to say this. When I listened to all of the media discussion, you kept hearing what the most extreme people in either party had to say, and more the Republican extremes than the Democratic extremes. What I mean by extremes is you had on the Republican side, their extremists were people that wanted to pay no taxes and still wanted to have a humongously robust national defense and no regulations and the ability to walk into your bank account and steal your money and put it in it. No, I made that up. But, they were no taxes, no services, huge military and no regulation. That's what they seem to want. On the Democratic side, they seem to want child care. You got all these people having babies and whatnot. If you're going to have 92% of the women in this country before they turn 50 years old are going to have a baby before they turn 50 years old, 92%, it would seem to me that you would prepare your country for that reality. That's something that you just need to do for that population of people, period. You should have structures to make that happen without it being too onerous. And when I say being onerous, I mean people paying something in the area of $200 a week per child for childcare. That's one child is over $10,000 in a year for you to have childcare for one child so you can work. So if you're working, if you're not making $40,000 a year in your job, it's actually counterproductive for you to work. You're actually losing money, by working. So the Democrats tend to be on the child care issues. They tend to be on increasing taxes so you can pay for the things that people need. Paying for things things that people need might be like grading roads so that when Norman's going down the road, to go to North Carolina and whatnot, he don't slide off the road because the road was designed poorly.
Right.
That's why you grade the roads so that people don't slide off the roads, right? That's why you put, a drainage, alongside a road so that the water has someplace to go other than pooling up in the middle of the highway. I mean, basic things like that. That's what the money is used for. People act as if the government is a whole bunch of people with suits on, or white shirts, and they're just sitting around here getting paid, because there's some name brand, on the office. That's not true. This federal money is being used to defend your ability to police your water, to police your food, to make sure that things are scaled in a uniform way so that you can count on what a particular product can do, because it's standardized. That you have consistency in your education systems, your public education systems across the country. I mean, that's what the money is for. Democrats tend to be about spending money on those things that will help people to have a better quality of life in this country. Yeah. Now, they may do some other things that they shouldn't do. Joe Manchin's a Democrat. He likes to spend money on Mountain Valley pipelines. I'm kind of puzzled because Willie normally has something to say about that, but he didn't say anything about the Mountain Valley pipeline. I think Willie had a little deal going with Joe Manchin. Right?
The man got to make his money. Come on, guys. He's got to make his money, guys. Come on.
So that means Willie's going to be sitting on one side of the pipeline. So when the oil goes in, cha-ching, cha-ching. So when the oil goes out.
So Joe, you heard me, man. Uncle brother up.
So, but these extreme versions, to me, extreme also is, and this may not be your way of understanding it, but it's the way my mind is processing it. When you see these discussions going on all the time, even on, radio stations about people with different gender identifications, and somebody's got a book that shows sexual acts in a book. I don't know why sexual acts belong in a book that goes to a school in the first place. Why would you have a book that has sexual acts in it available to kids in the school library? That's not something that you're going to study. So what's the purpose of having that there in the first place? But Democrats are afraid that if you chop away those kinds of books, you open up the doorway to chopping away other kinds of books, that do other things. I guess there's this normalization, if that's the right way to say it, of this gender identification stuff, that normalization of all of that. And to some extent, Norm, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think you do have to normalize if somebody is visibly a female, but they see themselves as a male, if that's their reality. So they comb their hair, cut their hair, whatever, wear clothes, that way. If you don't normalize that, then you make it almost like open season for people to attack people like that.
Yeah. Right, that's it. Right
and
there.
The reality is there's nothing illegal about you combing your hair like a boy, or you dressing like a boy, or you combing your hair like a girl and dressing like a girl. There's nothing illegal about that. And if it's not illegal, why would you put people in a position where they get targeted because you make it normal for people to target people like that?
Right. I know growing up, there was a lot, especially in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of people that was different, even had friends that act maybe a little feminine, and they was treated different. And then, of course, people who dressed different or called themselves gay, they were really battered for that position.
Right. So these are the extremes, in the party. But the point that I'm trying to make is 317 people voted for the debt ceiling bill. They were not the extremes. They were the middle. So it looks to me like there's a very large chunk of people who, I don't know what the word moderate is the right word to say for them, but the word pragmatic seems to me to be the right word. They're able to read the tea leaves and say, this outcome is better than this outcome, even though I don't like either outcome.
Yeah.
If I got to have one of these outcomes, I'd rather this outcome rather than that outcome be the one that rules. That, to me, I was uncertain, to be honest with you, until Wednesday, that we had enough people in our legislatures, in the Senate and the House of Representatives, did we have enough people who were pragmatic to be able to get a deal like this done? You know, people that can actually make that value a choice.
Yeah.
This is a thing that I'm not happy with. This is something else that I'm not happy with. But if I have to go with one of these two things I'm unhappy with, I'd rather this unhappy rather than that unhappy. That's pragmatism.
Yeah. You know, I believe, and this is just me in general, I believe in choice. I think people should have the to be able to live the way that they want to live and be who they are. And you know, we have to make it a normal situation to accept people, because people are going to be people, and how they choose to live, that's their right. You know, when you really break it down, you have us. I'm going to use this, but it doesn't mean it this way. The lesser of two evils. And when you look at this, you want to come to a situation where it comes down to being the best situation for us in general. And
remember what Einstein said in the theory of relativity.
Yes, sir.
Right? Your point of view determines what's good or what's bad or what's less or what's more. So where you sit, something may seem less than where I sit, that something may seem more, you know, and the opposite can be true. That's okay. That's what democracy is supposed to be about, to make it possible for us to be able to get along without killing each other. Because we accept a position that we struggle, fight, we try to find ways to get to a middle ground on stuff. And then once we get to an acceptable position to enough people, we put it to a vote. And if the majority of people vote for it, that's the road that we go down, and we accept it. Mr.
Hare, I agree with something that you taught us a little while back, but this is coming directly from your father. And what it stems for is the self-interest and the self-interest of all who are involved. And we're talking about the people in general. And when it revolves to us, what's the best thing for our people?
And honestly, that core principle is what is frustrating in the political environment that we're in right now. People are voting for things that appear to me not to be in their best interest. Why are you voting for Ron DeSantis, who's pulling books off the shelves because Rosa Parks is in there and the book says that she was fighting for black people to be able to sit wherever they want to sit on the bus and not have to give their seats up to, you know, a white woman? Why are we having an argument about what is that about, right?
Right.
See, now you're telling me that you got people that are fighting over that to have the right to oppress people that way, and simultaneously the same people are fighting against a regulation that would ensure that your water stays clean, that ensures you're not getting water from the Flint River as opposed to getting water from the Hudson Lake. The Hudson Lake had clean water. The Flint River had chemically tainted water, had lead tainted water. Why would you be getting your water from the Flint River? Because it was cheaper? That was your reason? You poisoned 107,000 people in a community in Flint, Michigan, because it was cheaper to poison them than it was to give them clean water?
Wow.
This is what I mean. You vote for people that are harming you. And people who, whatever your feeling is about them, it doesn't really affect you. It's not taking food out of your mouth. It's not making you marry somebody you don't want to marry. It doesn't say you have to wear a mini skirt rather than a maxi skirt. It doesn't say any of that stuff, okay? The people that are not doing anything that harms you at all versus people that are doing things that harm you, and you keep voting for people that are doing things that are actually harming you.
Mr. Hare, I'm hoping maybe you could just take a minute or two. Can you please explain because people are considering Ron DeSantis as a a rival to Trump. You know what I mean? And maybe some people might think, I need you to let people know about the Stop Woke Act, which he's which he brought about.
So essentially, there's no definition in the act of what the word woke means. So for you to even write a bill where the purpose of the bill is to stop something from happening that you can't even define what it is that you're trying to stop is insane. So that bill should never have gotten out of the Florida legislature in the first place, but it did. When they say woke, what they basically are saying is anything that flows against what Ron DeSantis' ilk of people think is normal America. So normal America is Ozzie and Harriet, little beanie caps with helicopters, propellers, on top, skirts that go down to the middle part of your your shin. Nobody ever swears out loud. This is what they mean by anti-woke, right? That, everybody combs their hair the same basic way. They established standards of beauty. Standard of beauty. Well, I won't go through all of that right now, but they have certain standards of beauty.
Well, it is.
And you might not fit in that standard of beauty. So you start running around writing articles and pushing it in magazines that you provide for kids in school that talk about different standards of beauty. Ron DeSantis says, well, you're making people feel bad. You're making them feel bad because they feel like you used to oppress them, for not looking like I think the people ought to look.
Right.
And they shouldn't have to feel bad about that. That makes no sense.
And what about taking books off the shelves as far as learning and that type of thing?
Well, exactly. So, you can't study the Civil War without understanding what brought the Civil War on. His position is that if you study the Civil War from that point of view, it would make children feel ashamed of the people who did these oppressive things to other people.
Their predecessors.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And, they may feel ashamed.
And they should feel ashamed.
Why shouldn't it be known is my question.
Because if they felt ashamed, that would hopefully make them not want to do this in the future. So when I was growing up, as Norm was, as Willie was alluding to a little bit earlier, it was like normal to be abusive to people that had alternate sexuality.
Right, different.
Right.
That's
and so they would be the people that get picked on a lot, and so on. Well, as I got older and I began to become more clear in my own mind that these people have every right to be whatever it is they want to be. They're not bothering me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and even though I don't understand it, and I'm be brutally honest, I'm never going to try to understand it. That's just not on my plate. But I'm not trying to hurt you because I don't understand your way of doing things, your way of seeing things. As long as what you're doing is not illegal, I don't have a beef with it. Just do what you're going to do. So I felt a sense of shame in my own self when I realized that I had been a part of the oppressive group.
Yep.
That I really don't want to be a part of a progressive group. Because if you start signing off on oppressing person A, it won't be long before you start oppressing person B, and then C, and then so on. And then the day is going to come when the person who's getting oppressed ain't A, B, C, or D. It's you.
It's you. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to defend that gate. Not that you don't have to defend the gate on people's alternate sexuality. You need to defend the gate on people arbitrarily, oppressing you. And so the Stop Woke people don't want you to do that. They don't want you to, we can't be letting people feel bad, about what other people did. I think you need to feel bad.
Yeah, that's how we learn.
Right. I mean, you can't take that away. You murdered. I mean, can I just be brutally honest about this?
Okay. You got 1 minute to be brutally honest.
There used to be 25 million native or indigenous people that lived on the continent of North America before Christopher Colon and his band of bandits came to these shores.
Yeah.
25 million people. By the time we got from 1492 to 1892, that number of people fell to less than 2 million people. They killed over 90% of the people who were the indigenous population of this continent.
And not only
95%.
Not only that, Mr. Head, they had us brainwashed. I remember watching TV as a young boy, like, kill those Indians, kill those Indians.
Right. Yeah, you were in that.
Totally brainwashed.
Yeah, you were in that. I was trying to stop you, but you were in that. But, you know, that you should feel shame. I feel shame.
I feel shame.
Right? And I didn't do it, but I still feel shame.
Shame for even, right,
okay?
Acknowledge
You know, because that shame makes me look at what took place and what needs to be taking place right now.
Right.
And I can sign off on helping people, you know, to have affirmative action for Native or indigenous people so that their reality can be resurrected. Even if we can't put those lives back on the table, we can put their reality back on the table.
One last thing, Mr. I'd just like to add, they say if we don't know our history,
you are doomed.
Be forced to relive it.
You are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. So,
except that, you know, somebody else said something a little cuter. You know, they said, yeah, history might not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And I think that that's definitely the case, right?
Yeah.
So listen, this is our week. At least we got the debt ceiling issue behind us. There's still going to be a lot of consternation and stuff going on, but we're going to move on to some other subjects. We look forward to talking to you. Have a safe weekend.
Yes.
Look forward to talking to you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY. Hi, Talia. We'll see you all then.